friends. This is the program Empire of Lies, where we discuss manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. Space as the new sacred ground. What Russian television is really selling Soloviev's Russian show is once again changing the map of war, this time in 3 dimensions. From a series of theses about the end of Start 3, orbital platforms, arrows of God, and hypersonic jumps, a coherent picture emerges. The coming war is not on the ground or in the air, but in space, and therefore all previous restrictions are meaningless. This isn't just a collection of fantasies and technical details, it's an ideological manifesto. It justifies the arms race, prepares audiences for the rejection of treaties, and legitimizes new escalation as the natural course of history. 1. Bury New Start, disabling the safety caution. The first conceptual block is a demonstrative farewell to the regime of strategic restraint. The viewer is told that the US is already burying New Start by building up its submarines, missiles, and bombers. Therefore, Russia is merely realistically stating the end of an era. The question, why haven't the Americans invested in strategic missiles for 50 years, is translated into the answer, because they're going into space. The rhetorical device is simple. If the adversary has moved to the next level, any previous agreements are declared obsolete. In other words, the audience is prepared to accept the absence of rules as the norm, and to accept that the West bears responsibility for this. 2. Space instead of treaties. Orbital bombers as moral amnesty. Next comes a technological cascade. Starlink is an integral element of the battlefield, hypersonic jumps for cargo transfers, God's arrows, tungsten rods supposedly comparable in effect to tactical nuclear weapons, and the X-37B as a prototype unmanned orbital shuttle. This entire technological showcase serves not an informational but a normative function. If they are already militarizing orbit, we are allowed to do anything on the ground. Space becomes not a constraint, but a justification. The result is a moral amnesty for further escalation. Old treaties are unworkable, new ones are impossible, and all that remains is an increase in force. And Trump is now trying to compensate for this lag to some extent by commissioning, he didn't say this, the Chief of the General Staff and the Minister of Defense said so at our Security Council meeting. New submarines, new missiles, the preservation of bombers, and so on. In other words, he's essentially burying the issue of the New START treaty, the Strategic Offensive Arms Treaty. It's crucial to ask the question, the powerful US military-industrial complex, which is also a very significant base, is investing enormous amounts of money in it. Why haven't they invested in strategic missiles for 50 years? Why haven't they extended their service life? Why aren't they pursuing the development of ground-based systems? Because they rely on space, they're moving in that direction. They understand perfectly well that it's the future. They understand perfectly well that delivery systems in the form of orbital platforms, which can, like orbital bombers, a phrase we've only heard in science fiction, are the future they will rely on and invest in. 3. Asymmetrical response as ideology. Don't catch up to Musk, go beyond the horizon. The key thesis of this block, Russia can't catch up by copying the US, which means a brazen solution, like Poseidon and Burevestnik, is needed. The point isn't in the specific performance characteristics, but in principle. Acknowledge the enemy's advantages in satellite constellations and civil-military dualism, SpaceX, but turn the conversation toward legitimizing one's own unconventional systems. This is the cultivation of techno-romanticism in a military vein. The new beauty of Buran is intended to overshadow discussions of cost, risks, control, and consequences. Technology here is the language of justification, not the subject of analysis. 4. Normalization of preventive action. Deorbit cannot be stopped. when orbital platforms are presented as a strike capability in minutes and kinetically uninterceptable munitions as a non-nuclear alternative to destruction, the rhetoric takes another turn. It normalizes preventive actions and devalues the distinction between nuclear and non-nuclear. This is a dangerous semantic fusion. Non-nuclear equals acceptable, instant equals inevitable. The psychological effect on the viewer is clear. The less time they have to make decisions, the greater the right to decisiveness we have. 5. Political addendum. Poland as a litmus test, society as a resource. After the space arc, the camera descends to the ground, to Poland. Here the lens switches from orbits to human resources, from communication systems to public sentiment. The goal is to confirm the main line. The West is crumbling, Ukrainian support is waning, fatigue is just one step away from division. Poland is being declared a litmus test for Europe's future, and any data, real, disputed, or taken out of context, is being tailored to this narrative. This rhetoric isn't about military science, but about removing restrictions. The program simultaneously desacralizes treaties. The New START is devalued, new ones are unnecessary. Legitimizes the militarization of space as a logical response. Replaces discussion of risks with talk of technical sophistication. Preemptively justifies further strikes. If we can't intercept from orbit, then it's even more late to argue on the ground. Think, analyze, draw conclusions, and don't be fooled. This was the Empire of Lies program.